Hey everybody, and welcome to the live stream from the Sydney Summit. Hey, how cool is this? All right, this is the second time only that we're doing a live stream from the Sydney Summit live. We have moderators who you can interact with in the chat boxes next to the corner of the screen. We're going to have lots of guests, Q&As, a whole raft of interesting folks are going to be coming on stage.
60-some sessions?
Something like 70 plus,
70?
in fact.
70.
We've got a lot.
Wow.
So by the way, I'm Dr. Pete. I run a solution architecture function here in Australia and New Zealand. And over here I have Chris.
I'm Chris Howard. I run the New South Wales Territory Solutions Architect team here in Sydney.
And I'm Dean Samuels. I'm the head of solutions architecture for Hong Kong and Taiwan. So it's a pleasure to come and join the Sydney Summit today.
Indeed. And look, we're all actually solution architects, right? So it's our job to do whiteboarding, inspire customers, talk about innovation, talk about the deep tech, and the Sydney Summit fundamentally isn't a marketing event, guys, as we all know. It's actually a place to come and learn from others, learn from us, learn from other customers around what you can do with cloud technology. We're talking about ML, AI, intersection of technology. We had just a keynote streaming just a couple of minutes ago, and Chris, I got to ask the question. Glenn Gore, who opened up the keynote, had a really cool t-shirt. He said inclusion engineer. What do you think he actually meant?
Well, I loved it because last year I think he had a video game shirt on, but I love that he did that one this year. I thought it set a nice tone. We can always do better with the speakers we feature, with the customers, when we're always trying to do better at AWS, and I just love that he called it out like that. I think it talks about being intentional and trying to build a really diverse and inclusive community.
And that's, when you think about, biases in AI, it all comes from, lack of diversity, right?
Yes,
so
exactly.
Same with humans.
Yeah. If you're building products, you need to have your customers represented.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah, it's all about those different types of ideas from different backgrounds, right? So, I know coming from Hong Kong and Taiwan, working there, and getting those folks involved with the wider AWS community really does encourage that culture of innovation and creativity. So, to have that cross-functional, cross-geography collaboration is so super important. And you're mentioning, Dr. Pete, that the summit really does, it's not a marketing event. It caters for not only your technical folks, whether you're architects or your developers, but also on the business side as well. We've got a wide range of partners here as well, talking about their services and solutions that they can really offer to customers, so customers can focus on that innovation.
Exactly.
Fellas, I got to stop you there. Our first shout out of the day, Ian John won. He said to say hello. So if you want to talk to us, you can interact with our moderators.
Indeed. And listen, guys, this is fully interactive, so you get to ask us questions, make it as interactive as possible. And by the way, behind us, it's a bit hard to see, but we are on the expo floor here in the Sydney Summit, and we have amazing partners doing all sorts of really cool things. Thousands of people. We're expecting probably over 15,000 people over the next couple of days to actually walk through the venue and come and see us. By the way, we have prizes as well. Kim Vanilla, who's down the very front.
So many giveaways.
Yes, she will look after us. She's going to provide us lots of cool stuff, giveaways, stickers, t-shirts, a whole raft of freebies, so make sure you come and say hi. And by the way, for those of you who tune into AWS Tech Chat, oh, look at that.
Oh, giveaway.
Right, live TV, here's a giveaway, right? So there you go. All right.
Matches us.
Matches
Part of the
us.
team.
Yes,
This is us.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. So generally, Dean and I, by the way, do a podcast. So you may think that we're sounding a bit familiar in your ears, but we've also got Tech Chat stickers for the podcast.
Yeah, it's always good to put a face to a name, right, or face to a voice. So whilst the Tech Chat is a great way to interact with our customers and our listeners, something like this where it can be a bit more visual, because it's hard to describe a lot of things over just pure voice, right, Dr. Pete?
Well, the bow tie's already getting commentary.
enjoying
The
this?
bow
Yeah,
tie
really?
people are
Okay.
enjoying the bow tie, so the visual aspect is good.
Stay tuned for more cool, funky outfits.
Yeah.
All right, so listen, we talked about innovation, and what Glenn kind of really called out during the keynote, what I thought was really interesting is, in the physical world, we get caught by bright colors of products and and colorful boxes to get our attention at the store. But when you're actually online and you're shopping through and you're seeing the package picture, it's a bit of a different experience. And he spent a bit of time talking about how we've been actually working with those folks who are selling on Amazon to actually, work through this thing called frustration-free packaging, where you can actually do some really clever things and innovate around how you package your products. Because if they're being sold online, then you don't actually have to spend all those dollars and, on colors. You can actually make the packaging a little bit, perhaps a bit more mundane and save the environment.
Yeah.
More efficient.
Yeah, it's interesting how people, when you talk about innovation, think about digital innovation. Oh, let's innovate in the digital world. But it really takes a lot of traditional industries or traditional ways of doing things, like packaging, and turns it on the head in a very different way of doing it. You know, when you talk about being able to save on costs on packaging, because the way to advertise yourself in a digital way is very different in a real life way.
Precisely. But to be honest, I come from Poland, by the way, and when I was growing up, it was a communist country, and before coming to the West, everything was in grey boxes. Right. So I remember arriving in the West and realizing, wow, look at all this colourful, cool stuff. You just go into the store, you know, in my era as a kid, and there's the detergent, and it's in a grey box next to the other detergent, and you had a choice of maybe one or two if you were lucky. Whereas we're so used to the abundance, and now, you know, marketeers have to spend a lot of money trying to catch our eyes. But when you're in a digital domain, it is such a different experience.
Right. I know are you like a kid in a candy store when you go to the shopping centre still, and there's all this variety and colours?
No, but I must say, in my trip to Poland a few years ago, they had 68 washing machines in the Warsaw Mall, which was slightly larger than what we had here in Australia.
Right.
Wow.
68.
I was going to say, there is a fantastic future of retail booth here, showing off some of this stuff as well.
Well, actually, there's a lot of cool stuff, like the F1 car, by the way. As you may know, AWS is working with the Formula 1 racing.
Ooh, more stuff flying in.
And we have slippers being thrown our way.
Oh, nice. And
we have this is from GitLab. There you go. Awesome. There you go.
Yeah.
It looked a bit familiar.
There you go. Yeah.
Anyway, so I've got an F1 car, by the way, and we're doing real-time analytics and prediction of race cars. When I watched the Melbourne Grand Prix back in March, actually, on the corner of the screen it said powered by AWS. I was super excited because I knew what was going on, and they were predicting the chances of a car overtaking another car as they were coming out of pit stops.
Yeah, we actually got someone from Formula 1 coming in.
We do.
Right? Yeah,
Great
segue.
Well, and you can tie it into the keynote, because we saw a child driving a car with his mind.
With his mind controlling a vehicle. So we had Jordan Ewan, Dr.
Jordan, doctor.
Exactly, he came in and he talked about some really amazing things when you have an intersection of technology and humanity.
We can't have someone like that first thing in the morning. I felt like I was going to cry.
It was pretty emotional.
It was pretty emotional. It was really emotional.
One of the things we did do, just to get the crowd all excited, was a Mexican wave. Do you think we should do a Mexican wave?
Oh, God. I knew you were going to
start
the Mexican wave? And back again, and back, and back.
All right, let us know if you like any of these interactive things. So keep chatting to us and let us know what's going on. But fundamentally, that was a really interesting thing, because that boy had cerebral palsy and he used his eyes to actually steer the vehicle. Phenomenal things can be done with technology when they're interfacing to the human. It's amazing.
Yeah, it was. What was really inspirational to me is obviously enabling someone with cerebral palsy. They can't move their arms and legs, can't really talk, but using the motion of their eyes to really control the vehicle. But the really inspirational thing was he encountered a significant number of crashes.
Yes.
He thought he was successful.
Crashes?
25 crashes, but he just was so motivated to get to that finish line, and it was just awe-inspiring to see that in the actual video. And it's really a good example there that, you know, you do expect failure when you are looking at innovation, and the most important thing is how you deal with that failure. You pick yourself up, you pivot, you just redo it over again, and you just don't give up.
Yeah, and look, the other amazing story I found that really pulled at my heartstrings was the story of Jessica. She's also got cerebral palsy. She's loves photography, and again, working with technology intersection, you know, again, she was able to create and play music.
With a rock band, with a rock idol. You know, it was Noiseworks with Steve Balby, that's who it was.
Exactly.
Yeah, at the Opera House. That was so cool.
And that's somebody she wanted to perform with. And so when you think about it, if you think big, if you think about how you can leverage technology to your advantage, you know, forget physical disabilities, forget not being able to do something. Think of the things that you can do, focus on that, dream big, and hopefully technology will actually take us there.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see Dr. Jordan actually spoke about innovation in China as well, which was really interesting, you know, especially close to my heart, working very closely with our Chinese customers and our Chinese teams over there. You know, talking a little bit about innovation in 3D printing. What was awesome to see is when you typically think about 3D printing, it's all about printing these very small little items and devices, but he was talking about about actually 3D printing houses, complete houses. And he had a video of a 3D printed house, a double-story house that was actually completed in 10 days.
It was
It was a mansion, and a single story could be done in like 7 days. So that's obviously really going to disrupt.
And the price points were phenomenal. It was $70,000 to 3D print a mansion.
And 10,000 for a single story. So you can imagine the cost of living, how that's going to be disrupted
Affordable
going
housing.
forward.
Think about all the third world places that could actually use some of these things, right? I mean, I've seen bricklaying robots very quickly build houses, but this is something else, right? You roll this thing up and it's done in situ, and only a couple of days, you've got a place you can live in.
Well, and talking about robotics, there's going to be a talk on Thursday. One of the solutions architects, Bobby, here in Sydney, built a 3D printed robot arm. He printed it at home. This is something that would cost you thousands of dollars industrial, and he built one in his basement, and he's going to be talking about using RoboMaker with it. So 3D printing.
Yeah, look, like I said,
mansions, robots.
ML, AI, robotics, the whole intersection of sensory data from Internet of Things. We're in this perfect storm, guys. It's fascinating, and the thing that I really liked about also the China tour that you spoke of was the personal transporter, which was the copter that you get
drone.
into.
The drone.
Yeah.
What was the incident he mentioned? There was like a few batteries that burnt out.
Guys, imagine this copter's got 8 blades, and it has independent batteries driving each of the actual motors. And the battery caught on fire.
Well, 3 batteries caught on fire, and then 3 propellers stopped, and then he was able to land the aircraft quite safely still.
As if nothing happened.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And by the way, if you actually look into flying drones, you can actually, by changing the timings on the rotors, even on the conventional 4 engine ones, you can actually still safely land those things if one of them actually goes out.
Right.
Just change the timings and just go into hover mode and starts dropping slowly.
Wow.
I probably know a little bit too much about drones.
You do a little bit.
Yeah, so look guys, it's really cool. And the other thing that really also grabbed me was the little girl. There was about 3-year-old girl, again with cerebral palsy, and what we saw was an awesome video where, again, she sat there, stared at a screen and control a flying spaceship.
Well, they didn't know if she had cognition. Like her
Correct.
mother thought that she did, but they hadn't seen evidence of it. And by using this game, they were able to tell once they taught her, she was flying this little spaceship through buildings, and when she crashed, she would jump. So they knew that she was doing it. Yeah.
You can imagine that with the parents, right? One of the issues was that the parents couldn't really interact with her because of the condition that she was in. But putting her in front of this simulation where she could control, again, with the power of her eyes, it allowed that interaction between parent and child. Again, inspiring morning.
It really was. And when you think about it, again, that intersection of technology with the cloud is just driving so much innovation.
Yep.
Right?
I saw a tweet, though, that pointed out that what the great thing about the keynote is they focused on people, though. We were talking about technology, but it was all about collaborating with people, which I thought was really nice.
Look, I'm a big fan of technology. When we have customer conversations, I mean, we often end up talking about the end customer benefits. But as architects, all of us, I think we have the best job in the world. Right? I mean, we get to go in to see customers, we get to whiteboard with them, brainstorm, inspire them, educate them, and talk about how they can make a positive impact on their customers or their own people in their own organizations through use of technology. And I'm a big believer that technology is just going to disappear. Right? It's going to become ubiquitous. We're not going to think about, it's like the pencil or the pen.
Yeah.
When we first had the pen, you kind of focus on the device, but after a while you just do it. Like laptops, you walk up, you write your assignment or your email and you walk away. You don't think about the tools as much. And I'm a big believer that that's where we're heading. Give us another few more years and we'll have the AWS ubiquitous technology service maybe.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I guess the key takeaway for me from this morning's talk from the doctor is that he mentioned that technology is really the enabler.
Yeah.
Right? It's all about defining your purpose.
Totally.
What is the thing you want to focus on and take action using maybe the power of technology.
Yeah.
I liked that Star Trek analogy that it's humans and robots. I think he said a symphony of humans and robots working together to boldly go, which I really really liked.
Hi Brady, who was one of the other keynote presenters.
Bit of a hero moment there.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, look, and what I actually loved a slide he actually showed, because there's this concept around AI is going to take all of our jobs. We're going to lose all the things that we have, the robots are going to eat our lunch, and he had this great graph which actually showed historically, the era of the physics, the era of the internet, the era of robotics now, and that basically the GDP has been roughly, at least for the US, 3% growth.
Yeah.
But then he also showed that the year-on-year unemployment remained roughly at about 7%. Even when it dipped during the Great Recession, it came back and it averaged out to about 7%. So I think it was a really great statistical reference to reality and go, don't be fearful of technology.
And the key takeaway, more robots, more jobs.
More jobs. Yeah, and he had this really cool picture of a flywheel.
We love flywheels.
We love
our flywheels.
That's right, the innovation flywheel. And he had one around, the more robots we build, the more jobs we have, more people. And when you think about it, we're just creating different kinds of jobs. And he had this great slide where he was talking about, we have jobs going at Amazon.
Blockchain architect.
Blockchain architect, social media person. Jobs that traditionally didn't exist, Dean.
Well, if you think about even our jobs, right? Our jobs didn't exist, 20 years ago? There was no cloud
10 years ago, cloud architects.
Exactly.
Yeah, cloud architects were the guys who drew little clouds and networks generally, not actual infrastructure and software and the other 165 services that we have on offer.
Yeah, and so even how technology is improving and optimizing the way in agriculture. I think the statistic that he mentioned, that I mentioned, was that, what was it about?
Farmers in the past, before technology, would basically be able to provide yield to feed 4 people. And now with the use of technology, it's like 150
one farmer to produce. So you can see the efficiencies there just through the power of technology.
Total exponential output.
So it's a tool. It's not a replacement, it's a tool.
Exactly.
It's a tool. It's a tool. I mean the analogy I like to use when it comes to things like AI and robotics, when you think about mankind, I mean, when we domesticated dogs, that was a significant change in mankind, and effectively it made us safer and gave us more opportunities, and we had a symbiotical relationship between animals and ourselves, and that was also the basis for farming, the agri era. So when you think about AI, I actually think we're going to have a very fascinating woven intersection of great jobs that we're good at. We're good at being creative and thinking about all the unusual stuff that's going on. We're not so good at repetition.
I like that he talked about things humans are good at versus robots are good at. I love that. Because it's not creativity.
Exactly.
It has to come from people.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
We're going to have some very creative people on this stage over the next 3 days.
We are. We can have 3 days of live streaming, guys. Hopefully our voices don't give out in that time.
Yeah. Well, we've got other hosts coming up, which is a good thing. It's going to give us a chance to rest. But
we do. And look, we also had some really fascinating discussions around airlines. I mean, we fly a lot. You certainly fly a lot.
You flew just recently?
I flew just the other day. Well, actually, many of us flew to be here. So how does arms holding up? So we had the CTO of
Rob James,
Qantas, and you spoke to us about some really cool, interesting things about flight planning.
Well, even their innovation. I didn't know they invented business class.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
I mean, I don't often see the inside of business class, but it's good to know that it's there.
I get to walk past it.
Exactly. So thanks, Rob.
So he spoke about Constellation, which is a platform that they've actually built, and what it does, it actually helps them figure out most optimum flight paths for their aircraft. And every time a plane lands, they would download information out of the actual planes and get some telemetry, but also they looked at, interesting data point.
It's not just shortest distance.
No. They figured out how they can fly
Weather
really far.
And up higher, down lower.
Yeah, and pick the best aircraft, because when you buy an aircraft, it's a 10-plus year investment. That's a lot of ROI you hope to get out of those things, right? It's like a public bus service, right? So you don't want to get it wrong. And if you fly the planes on the wrong legs and the aircraft's not designed for weather conditions, all this stuff was taken into consideration, and they came up with some fascinating learnings.
We all kind of had an ooh moment over that Flight View app that he showed off.
That was pretty cool.
The augmented reality app, that was really cool.
Maybe tell the audience about what's about.
It was an augmented reality app that he said would allow you to peel back the airplane and see what you're flying over and really sort of zoom in. And this is made possible. Not only do they have in-flight Wi-Fi, but it's been getting really good.
Fast,
and that allows things like this to happen.
So I thought it was really cool because my kids love, when we fly, they love to hit the flight camera view when they're sitting in seats at takeoff and landing. But this is another level. I mean, you could literally sit there on the app, flying over towns which are below you. And obviously, if you've got the middle aisle, you can't see below the plane, right?
Exactly.
So you could actually sit there with your app and swipe down, zoom in, pick the place, and actually potentially book your next holiday to go there.
That was
a nice touch.
You're always wondering what's that town down there. Oh, that looks awesome. Look at those beaches down there. And being able to see that in an augmented reality fashion on your application. And then let's book my next holiday or let's book my next flight based on where I'm flying over.
I might actually use it because I keep flying over Ayers Rock when I'm heading towards Asia, and you tend to fly from Melbourne past Ayers Rock, and I always keep saying to my wife, we should go there sometime. So it imagine the impulse buy that we could actually generate for so many extra holidays.
You don't keep on asking what's that down there. You know it says rock, right?
Yeah, it's a red kind of big rock thing. Yeah,
right. Okay,
that's
good.
unusually sticking out of nowhere, right?
Right.
But that's like a customer delight thing. But then the cost, like you said, 20 to 40% of their operating cost is just the fuel. And so if you can come up with a more efficient way to get people, I mean, that flight now from Perth to London used to take like
hours,
4 days, and now it's in 17 hours.
It's phenomenal. And one stat that really hit me, I started doing math in my head, it's like, the reference point was we burn through 7 liters of fuel every second.
I think that was even per engine, was it?
On the A380. On A380, it's burned through 7 liters of fuel every second. Because just pumping that fuel.
I would just visualize
like from a fire hose,
bottles,
right?
7 bottles of like Coke. It's like that's being burned every second.
Right. So it's obviously super important in terms of the fuel efficiencies, right?
Totally.
So if they're spending up to 40% of their costs on fuel, having this technology that enables them to optimize those flight paths, take into the various considerations, because absolutely the shortest path isn't always the best path, right?
Correct.
Where they can start really saving. I think one of the stats around where they're looking at flights from Sydney to Santiago, using this flight optimization and flight planning system, they were able to save 1 ton of fuel just flying on that particular leg.
Wow.
That's amazing. That's extra cargo you could actually put on the plane and get extra revenue.
Yep.
So, some of these amazing flight optimization algorithms, and I've been a little bit across the Constellation platform, they do some really cool stuff, and they use a whole fleet of instances. What was the number of CPUs? Is it 2,000 or 3,000 that they were actually?
4,000 CPUs, I think.
Huge amount of cores
amount of CPUs.
to do parallel calculations, and that's unheard of, right? In the past, you think about maybe having 1 or 2. I remember watching the Titanic behind-the-scenes movie a little while, many years ago now. It's an old film where they talked about how they had a render farm. And that was way pre-cloud, and now we have render farms running on AWS. We have flight simulations running on there.
I think he said it's the equivalent of a 10-year study done in like 9 hours.
Phenomenal.
That's
just amazing.
That's amazing.
And we then fortunately had Alan Joyce come on stage.
So
the CEO of Qantas,
yes.
to come on stage and really talk about their future direction. What's next for airline travel. And one of the innovative things that Qantas had done previously was a direct flight from Perth to London. So at the time, it was one of the longest flights, direct flights in the world. But that's not stopping them. Now, they're looking now at direct flights from Sydney and Melbourne to London, or Sydney and Melbourne to New York. The issue is the actual technology does not exist today as far as aircraft. So they've really challenged aircraft manufacturers like Airbus and Boeing about building a plane that can support that type of direct route. And the manufacturers have really taken that on board. They're seeing it as a space race.
But isn't that disruptive? Normally the manufacturer tells you what the safety parameters are of the devices or the gadgets or planes that you buy. Now you have the ability as a customer with access to the telemetry information in the device you've been given.
To think big,
collect that data, look at it, experiment, model with it on scale, and then go back to the manufacturers and say, hey, by the way, guys, have you considered this option? This is what we're seeing in the field, and we at AWS, we see a lot of this, right? I mean, we have so many customer conversations. They come to us and say, hey, that service you've got, can you give us an extra feature or two? I think it's an exact example of that, except now the customers, in many cases like Qantas, have had the opportunity to actually go and think it themselves.
That drives, like 90% of our new features come from what customers tell us that they want.
Totally.
Yep. And it's really interesting to see you could say at the time a fairly traditional customer like Qantas, created in 1920 or established in 1920, and over the years, obviously they've brought in things like business class and other things. But now what they're doing is they're really operating as a startup. The various projects that they have underway where they're investing, where they're working with manufacturers to deliver technology of the future that doesn't exist today.
Yeah.
And one of the really compelling things that Alan mentioned on stage when he was talking to Glenn is that he was actually doing a round of talk shows and morning shows in Australia and talking a little bit about some of the future projects and the direction of the Qantas business and really undergoing a huge transformation.
Give us a teaser here in case somebody missed the keynotes.
Who's Alan Joyce?
Yeah.
So Alan Joyce is the CEO of Qantas. So it was great for him to come in and really talk about that. On one talk show, they actually came back and said 98% of people they polled said that he should resign. Because they didn't believe.
Resign.
Yeah, he should resign. That they didn't believe in what he was doing. The transformation that the Qantas was undergoing was having a significant negative impact to the business. And his advice was, sometimes the things you do are not popular.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes the things you do are going to be misunderstood, and it really aligns with our leadership principle of think big, right? Where we are always focused on the long term. We are willing to be misunderstood as long as we believe what we're doing is right. It's going to pay dividends for you down the road.
Did you guys see that clip he did with the 2 little boys who wrote the letter? It was a great one. These 2 little kids wrote a letter to him about their own airline, and he set up a summit with them, CEO to CEO of airlines. It's really cute. Look it up.
Probably the youngest CEO letter I've ever seen.
Well, and we talked about it today, about the need to sort of educate the next generation for whom these tools and technology are going to be just natural.
Yeah, like for kids today, or people at universities who are getting the degrees, you know, when you get out, you start your degree, the internet, the world moves on, and you know, hopefully you're paying attention because it can augment your jobs. And we talked about also about our fulfillment centers, about how we're investing in our people to teach them, you know, I think it was the
robotics.
Yeah, to teach them robotics. It's
yeah.
critical because, you know, just because you start in a role doing X, it doesn't mean your entire life's going to be that way. I'm a victim of that. I've had jobs from, you know, picking up garbage at school as a kid to being a game developer and now being a cloud architect. Jobs that didn't exist.
Yeah, well, even over the last 7 years, our time at AWS, jobs changed, right? It has evolved, and it's really changing with the times.
I reckon blockchain architect.
Like
yeah,
blockchain?
totally. Yeah.
Maybe you can apply, right? There was a job reference in the keynote.
That's I'll go social media, and then you'll do...
I don't know.
What was the other one?
I don't remember the other one.
Social media.
Well, Innovation Day is a great place to get ideas for this stuff.
And this is what today, guys, is all about. So look, I'm hoping you've all registered because come and see us here at the expo floor. Go and see the many sessions. We've got you know, truckloads of interesting customers getting up on stage. AWS folks like Bobby showing his robotic arm.
Get
we have
the app,
MJ.
by the way. If you don't have the app, install the app. It's on the App Store, and then you can see all the sessions and plan your day. It's much easier.
And we've got content constantly available on this channel as well, right? So we've got hosts coming in and out. We've got other information that's going to be quite
useful. We're going to have some roaming cameras.
Roaming roaming reporting
we may have
around the grounds.
Deep racer.
I get to do that when I'm really excited.
It's going to be a lot of fun. And look, and to give you an example of, you know, real life, so offline and online, so we're coming to you live, obviously, but if you walk past behind us with your badges, if you actually here on the expo floor, you tap it, and we'll actually give you all that cool content that we've been generating over the last few hours in the last few days. So how cool is that? Offline meets offline.
This is really cool.
Online.
Yeah.
Fabulous. So listen, guys, don't forget we are fully interactive. This is a live stream, so accidents may happen.
Well, for example,
catch us out.
Uluru, not Ayers Rock.
Uluru, not Ayers Rock.
My apologies to our Aboriginal colleagues and friends and elders past and future. I think that's the right way of saying it. Yes, so make sure you participate with us. We have prizes, we have giveaways. We'll have things thrown at us. Of varying shapes and sizes. So we hope you guys are going to enjoy the Sydney Summit. Don't go away. We're going to throw some couple of interesting videos your way, and we'll be back in about 5 minutes with the next segment, and we're going to keep going live whole day, every day for the next 3 days.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
Lots of caffeine. Lots of caffeine.
Get some coffee. All right, we'll see you guys shortly. And by the way, if you show up here, you might even get some free t-shirts.
Swag.
Goes to Kim.
Giveaways.
All right, see you soon, guys.
See ya.
Awesome.